record inflation. Where will the prices of silver, the US dollar, real estate, what's going to happen next? And here to discuss that conversation is my good friend Mike. He is the CEO of Vizsla Silver, and he is joined with his co-founder, Craig Perry, today. Now, this is going to be a fantastic conversation. Craig doesn't do that many interviews, but if you're unfamiliar, Craig's one of the biggest financiers and one of the more successful mining executives and founders of companies that you'll see. He was involved in next gen uranium energy, fantastic success story now on major exchanges, and ISO energy as well. Craig and Mike built Vizsla Silver. They were our first sponsor here on this channel. And some exciting news too, because they actually were just uplisted to the New York Stock Exchange. And, an incredible feat, especially for a company that is not producing silver quite yet. Mike was just letting me know the only other company out there that isn't producing or getting close right into the stage of production is Newfound Gold. So Vizsla Silver now on the New York Stock Exchange. I'm really proud of that because they were our first ever sponsor. And it's been an amazing success story so far. Even with the price of silver going sideways, Vizsla has been one of the top success stories up major. And so make sure you smash the like button on this video. Give us a comment right there down below. This is Go Vizsla Go. We'll link Vizsla website right there down below as well. So be sure to check out Vizsla Silver now on the New York Stock Exchange. So congratulations, you guys.
Well, thanks, Jake. I really appreciate that. And it's our we have an excellent team here, CFO and corporate secretary. Worked very, very hard to get us listed on the NYSE, and we're very proud of that. And it's it's my first company. It's I think Craig's second or third on the U.S. exchange, but I'm sure that it'll help us become exposed more to the U.S. investor base as we grow the Vizsla story. And it's a very exciting time for the company right now.
Yeah. So you said only. One of the things that's been interesting as I've been growing this channel and talking to so many successful investors that I've been interviewing here is you see how so much when you're investing in mining stocks, so much less of the success of it is based off of the price of the metal. Obviously, it's a great multiplier and can help move exponentially. But I've seen, with you guys as our premier sponsor, how well you guys have done since Silver Squeeze pushed the price down, which is now maybe around $23 or so. What's been the key to get you guys out of so many companies onto the New York Stock Exchange? What's going on in the silver world?
Well, I think from the Vizsla perspective here, what the key to our success has been is just a quality asset first of all, surrounded by a quality team, a top quality team. And a lot of times people will say, well, what's the last, what's the key to success in junior mining? And I often just say luck to start, but also knowing when you have something that's of high quality and then bringing the right team around it. So from the discovery team that our technical director Charles put together originally to the team that we have now, Vizsla is managed and led by such an excellent team. And I think that's really the key to how we've been able to move so quickly and succeed there. But also just the nature, the high grade nature of the district, as well as the potential for us to move so rapidly towards resource and into production of the project is very key.
Craig, you've seen a few commodity cycles, and how does right now weigh up? Did you imagine that? I think we all see that inflation is much higher than the said rate of 7%. But even if you and I were talking on the phone 12 months ago, the wild prediction would have been that the Fed stated that inflation was 7%. We all know it's much higher. In many instances, a lot of things are up closer to 100%. But did you ever see that we'd be in a situation like this right now? And how do you assess the overall macroeconomic environment that we find ourselves in?
Yeah, great question. Big question, of course. I think, all of these central bankers, economists have been found out It must hurt them to admit that inflation is sort of north of 6 or 7% nowadays, because they're constantly telling us, well, they've been telling us this is transitory. I guess give this a couple of quarters and we'll see the real situation. I don't think it is transitory. None of the costs in my life look like they're going to go away or go down anytime soon. And so, my general view is, firstly, you've got to invest in metals. They're a tremendous hedge against inflation. Our New York Stock Exchange listing for Vizsla Silver, VZLA is the ticker there, makes it so much easier for a lot of your viewers to invest in the company. So that's one avenue to protect yourself against this inflationary environment we now find ourselves in. But I think, are we going to see hyperinflation or something like that? Who knows? These guys are still printing money hand over fist. It's quite astonishing how much cash is out in the system. And I suppose, what I'm seeing is that this tech bubble that we're in, and it's one of the great all-time bubbles, it's fast deflating, and at any minute that could completely collapse. And so that points to where I think we're at in the cycle, and it feels very much so. And of course, cycles are a bit more compressed these days, but we saw that 1999, 2000 tech bubble crash, and then commodities really started to take off. Commodity prices sort of took off from about 2002 onwards. We didn't really see equities get really going until about 2005. So I think there's still a little bit of time to get set for people. We're starting to see metal prices rise strongly. You see the Fed last week, Jerome Powell, some hawkish comments there had an impact on precious metals prices. Gold came off about $50. Silver was down $1. I think that's very short-term thinking in terms of gold and silver buyers, and that, in the medium term here, I don't think the Fed can stop doing what it's doing at the moment, printing cash and flooding the system with money. If it does, we'll see a collapse. Canada, here in Canada, the Central Bank of Canada kept interest rate rises on hold. I think we're going to see more of that. I think what they're trying to do is really put a cap on it by saying that they're going to raise interest rates. I'll be surprised if we see serious interest rate rises, because of the impacts that could have on the market. We can come back to that in a bit more detail, what we're seeing in terms of, the level of debt in Canada and the US largely prevents them from doing some of this stuff. So we're going to see inflation going forward. And so the best place to be if you've got serious inflation is, of course, gold and silver. And on that front, we prefer silver over gold. Gold's, great as a commodity, a currency, a hedge against inflation and a store of value, but it doesn't have that same commodity aspect that silver does. Silver does all of those things, but is we've got a much more favourable outlook for the commercial uses of silver. So we think you want to be investing in silver as much as you can, but any metal will do over time.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that. Why silver over gold? You touched on it a little bit, but let's go a little bit more into the thesis of why, out of anything you guys could have done or focused on. You mentioned gold. There's a lot of other commodities. Why silver versus gold?
Well, to my mind, it's things like, this push for renewable energies. You're seeing solar panels increasingly produced. The demand side very, very strong and improving all the time. And I think, as I say, it's the most commercial and most useful of the precious metals. But on the supply side, being explorers, developers and miners, we're really supply side tragics. And on the supply side, the interesting thing is there are no good new projects out there. Ours is the first major silver discovery of any note in many, many years of any scale. And so, when it comes to this growing demand profile, we don't see where that silver is going to come from. And indeed, our friends at BHP and South 32, one of the two world's major companies, they've got a major silver project, one of the biggest silver projects in the world down in Australia. They're saying that over the next 15 years, we're going to need another one or two of those per year to be discovered. Well, they just aren't out there. And none of the, there hasn't been a huge amount of exploration work for silver over the past 10 years or so. So we don't see where anyone's going to be able to meet that supply, that demand that's coming. There's just not enough silver out there at the moment. Hence, I think, silver trading about $23 an ounce today. It wouldn't be hard to see at some point in the next few years a point in time where that supply demand imbalance gets so outsized that we see $50, $100 silver or more. Hence we're sort of putting all of our money into metal exploration, but particularly into silver.
One of the things to note on that as well is just how tight that supply and demand balance is on silver, and you can see kind of any shakes to that or any kind of increased big buyers even in the silver space, and it can move it up $1 in a day or something like that. And I often joke and that I'm old enough to remember the silver squeeze of last year there, but that was around this time, and we were in Mexico and looking at our silver property and flying around, and we were kind of landing in areas where we didn't have great cell reception, and in a very small airplane, and checking the silver price, and you get out and you're jumping up higher and higher, and so all it takes is that market narrative to shift, and a couple of outside buyers to come in and really move the silver price. And it's still cheap. It's going to be cheap at $50. There just simply isn't enough silver in the world to do the things that we need to do, which is an ounce of silver goes into each electric vehicle. Solar panels are completely reliant on silver. What we'd like to do eventually, as we become more successful with moving the company into production, is become a supplier for the great energy transition that we're entering into here. So it's just a matter of time. It's an inevitability that silver goes to a higher price, and the reason for that is what we talked about here. The currency, the currency aspect of the metal matters. Massive inflation is happening right now, so you have one driver there, and as Craig said, the industrial application matters. And this is, I often tell people who weren't familiar with the last commodity run up, how really it was just China that drove that, and all these prices just exploded. Right now with this energy transition, where it's about 8 Chinas happening, in order for us to meet these demands of carbon zero by certain dates. And I think it's just going to be a spectacular time to be first of all, a shareholder of Vizsla and an investor in this space.
Yeah, it's amazing purely from the commercialized and the supply perspective. Craig, you said it was supply side tragic, and I think it's generally understated, especially when governments are talking about a move to all vehicles being electric. I know I've had a guest before do the math on the proposed amount of vehicles and how much ounces of silver that was, et cetera. But you said supply side tragic. So as an investor, is that the primary theme behind Vizsla, right? New York Stock Exchange listing. You're probably talking to some more bigger institutions that are realizing the importance of silver, not very many vehicles for them. You're now on the New York Stock Exchange. So why Vizsla when you're talking? Is it supply side tragic?
It is to some extent. And that's really talking more about the macro picture. We know that there hasn't been enough development work, enough exploration to meet this the demand that's seriously coming now, growing all the time and building. There's another element to this as well on the supply side, and this is where I don't think many people are talking about it. It's probably really only us at this stage, and that is when the demand increases massively, as it is starting to at the moment. Firstly, not enough exploration work done, not enough permitting. And you look at the roster of projects that can be brought on to meet that demand. And those projects have largely sat still for the past 10 years. So, and to bring a mine on these days, it's anywhere from 2 to 10 years or even up to 20 years to permit a project. It's become hellishly hard to permit projects globally. So you've got to do all that. But then when you get your permit in hand and you go to, say, our friends at Ausenco Engineering, Simon Smirlik's on the board of Vizsla Silver. He's the COO of Ausenco Engineering, the world's biggest independent EPCM contractor that builds mines, goes out and builds mines. Well, they can't build more than 1 or 2 a year. And then there are only a handful of guys with that sort of capability. So we haven't trained. We've lost a generation of people who can build projects. They're all retiring. Now we're going to have to bring back into the fold a bunch of 80 and 90-year-olds if you want to build the mines that need to be built, and they're not coming off the beach, I can tell you, anytime soon. We took a flight. We chartered a seaplane the other week to go up and meet one to talk to him about his capability, and the answer was, "Well, I'm happy to sit here on the beach. Please leave me alone." So we've lost a generation. So we're not going to be able to build the projects as quickly as is needed to meet the demand that's coming now. So I think we're in for possibly the greatest resource boom the world's ever seen. Certainly boom in metal prices because we don't have that capability. And as Mike said, what we're dealing with here now is a global phenomenon. The last boom was driven by the urbanization of Chinese people moving to cities, and that was about a billion people going through that transition. And that was enough to drive copper prices, for example, from 70 cents a pound up to $4.50 a pound. Well, now we're going through a completely global phenomenon where everyone will want an electric car. And you're starting to see stresses in the existing infrastructure. I did have to laugh the other day I shouldn't laugh because it's not a great thing, but Joe Biden heading out to Pennsylvania there and a bridge collapsed. The grids in certain cities in the US, I think LA now is starting to collapse as well. They just can't keep up with this electric demand for electric cars and those car owners' demand for power. So the world's going to need to, well, particularly the US is going to need to replicate its grid, and that's copper intensive and very, very silver intensive. So, at some point here, we're going to see crazy metal prices. Don't know whether it's sort of next month or next year or in the next few years, but at some point we're going to see explosive growth in those metal prices, and that will translate into things like Vizsla Silver doing very, very well.
Well, and just to quickly jump in on that too, and something that you pointed out in the past too, Jake, is in this type of environment where silver prices haven't improved, actually they've been worse for us. So Vizsla has essentially doubled its value and share price. So you can have the win without the metal price and the individual equity. So it's a better way to play it in a lot of ways than just buying a coin. You get more upside, you get more torque to the upside, and that's why although we do invest in certainly myself in precious metals, and I bought I'll give a shout out to the Wall Street Silver guys there. I bought this is the Way coin that they had from the Reddit squeeze there, so that was good. So I buy those things, but the biggest investment that we make personally is in these equities because you have outsized returns to the actual metal.
Well, let's talk about that. Is there a sense of urgency amongst you guys to front run this? If there really is, I've had David Garofalo on my show many times, and he said since the first time I ever had him on, there is a impending legitimate shortage due to mines not coming online. And I listen to what he says. He's a smart guy, but now you're starting to see he was very early to that. And then Craig, you just touched on there isn't that many people that can come bring a world-class mine online. And you could have a similar scenario that I had looking to buy a new car for my wife, where I had to pay for it 2 months before it came. And I picked the car that just came the faster, not the car I even wanted the most. Because some of them 2022 cars, some people said, well, you could put $5,000 down and we'll get it to you within 18 months. Well, what do you want me to do in the meantime? And you could have a similar scenario, I guess, that happens to mines. And you guys are in a unique position in that you're already now on the New York Stock Exchange. And you're in this place that Lobo from the Independent Speculator worked with Doug Casey's. Actually, I'm going to interview him in a couple days. He calls it the pre-production sweet spot, is a term that he uses for mining stocks that they're not in production yet, but they enter the pre-production stage. And it's when they get a big revaluation that is not based off of the price of metals, but the shift in the value that the company adds to the market. Is there a sense of urgency for you guys to get to that stage? Because I know you may be closer than many other companies that have a similar goal. Where are you at with that? Is there a sense of urgency to capitalize on that market need?
Yeah, well, I think Mike and the team have done a tremendous job in terms of, we feel that sense of urgency, and the team's delivering on our promise to investors there. Vizsla Silver's the third company of mine that's gone public on the New York Stock Exchange, and I can say that Mike, Mahesh, and the team did that in record time. And again, that sort of reflects the team's desire to really advance the company as quickly as we can. But more than that, we've got 10 rigs turning at the moment. It won't be news to people that we want to put more rigs out there. We'll probably go to 12 or 13 rigs soon, and that's drilling up a hell of a lot of silver and gold as we speak, and more coming on that front. So, getting ourselves in position as quickly and as safely as we can ahead of this run up in prices is so very important. Hence, one of my sort of key tenets of my personal investment philosophy is invest with companies that are actually advancing projects, doing stuff, delivering results. And of course, our news flow from Vizsla Silver has been spectacular, with more to come. We're not far away from announcing our maiden resource at Panuco. That'll be big news. We'll make a song and dance about that, of course. And then, more coming on that front. We do have the ability to go into early production, much well ahead of sort of schedule if we do everything right over the next 12 months. So, that I see it every day from the team. They're all here in the office bright and early. The guys are on the drill rigs bright and early, and drilling 24/7 actually on 10 rigs. So, that's how we're capitalizing on this opportunity for our shareholders, our investors, is really pushing things along as quickly as you possibly can. And I've never seen a project quite like this, where we're proving up so many ounces of resource so quickly. So, we're in a really good position here at Vizsla Silver.
Mike, sense of urgency to get into that pre-production sweet spot?
Absolutely. Well, we spent a bit of time together, I guess, in December, and we had talking about Vizsla, throughout that time, and I think you get a sense that we live this 24/7. We love this company, this group of people is unlike any other organization I've ever been involved in, really, in terms of the quality of everybody and how driven everyone is to succeed in it. So. It's urgent. We want to be there when we want to be early when this all happens, and I think we're offering investors a way to get exposure to each kind of section of the value of the mining life of a company. So, like you said, the pre-production curve there, exploration upside, which is the world's greatest value creation in terms of discovering something for that you can sell later for $23 an ounce for perhaps less than $1. Who knows what the metric is, and that's something we can calculate when the resource does come out. But the ability to find something and then later move it into production, investors in Vizsla are getting exposure to basically each part of that, which is so exciting. And it's only getting bigger, and then it's only getting bigger and better. So it's a very exciting time, and there is a huge sense of urgency.
Okay, Craig. So let's pretend that you didn't have all of your long, successful career you could bring with you. You couldn't bring your contacts. You couldn't bring all the resources and connections, but you could bring a few philosophies or mindsets, and you were starting right now, record inflation, supply chain disruptions, all these things happening in the world right now, and you had no money, but you could bring a couple of the philosophies that you learned, what would they be and where would you start?
Yeah, great question. And I think, firstly, knowing that inflation's out there, investing in things that are a potential hedge against inflation. And I think metals and metal companies with pounds or ounces in the ground, so very, very important, protects the downside, with unlocked upside. So investing in those sorts of companies, those sorts of opportunities, real estate potentially as well. But more than anything, I think you've got to back the people. So if I was completely new to this and I didn't know anyone, I'd be out there researching who has a good track record in this industry, and finding those things that are, projects that can supply metal to a metal-hungry world, but also a world that's scared of inflation.
Craig, if you didn't have any capital, what would you do? But you had your skill set that helped you become a very successful business person, but you had no capital and you had no money. Where would you start?
Yeah, I'd start by getting to conferences, talking first. Well, start online, start looking at who you're talking to, guys like Rick Rule, who they're talking to, and then seek those guys out, and find out what they're doing. Potentially raise money off those guys. I would, I've done it in the past. I'd take a little bit of capital I could muster and lever up, and place some big bets as well. And then the other thing, really, you've got to educate yourself. And the best way in our sector, there's no silver bullet in terms of courses you can do, or university degrees you can get. Best to go, use those online resources like your shows, and some of those other shows with Rick Rule and the like, but also get out and meet those people, talk to them, find out who's real, in the sector. Find out, Tony Manini, who my old business partner and one of my mentors, always said to me, Craig, that the best, don't worry about the projects and trying to invest in the best projects, back the best people, because those people will always end up with the best projects.
It's funny you said that about courses, because one of the ideas that I have, that I've been toying with, given the contacts that I've made, is to put together, I don't want to say the name of it, but to put together a mining stock crash course on how to build how to become a 7-figure miner investor, or 6-figure miner investor, and put together a crash course, featuring a lot of these great individuals such as yourself and Rick and many others. If you guys think that's a cool idea, let me know in the comments right there down below. I was thinking about it. Then there's a crash course available from top people that have built multi-million-dollar companies, tens of millions of dollars portfolios. What do you guys think of that?
I like it. I think
that
it'd be very handy.
Yeah, I've been toying with it. Outside of the mining world, Mike, what do you think are the most important financial philosophies right now, if you were starting over again, but you still had some of the best principles you learned or tools you learned? Where would your mind be focused?
I think it's there's a few things. One is the mentorship. I think that's the most important thing. Find
a mentor.
Finding whatever it is that interests you, understanding the landscape of it.
How do you get one? Let's talk a little bit about that, because I know it's been really valuable for you, Craig, being one of those, and it's been really incredibly valuable for me and something I've sought out too. But how do you? It's a foreign concept, or maybe you heard a little about it as a buzzword, but how do you go about getting a mentor?
Well, I think if I were to have to do that now, and I was starting over, I would probably spend a fair bit of time on that, whatever that subject is, on that Twitter or that kind of online community, understanding the people that are there. Then I would, if I had some capital to muster, or a credit card or something like that I could max out, I'd try to get on a plane, and either meet at a conference or do something and have some sort of unique thing to offer in exchange for that insight. Now, one thing I didn't understand when I was younger was that these people actually wanted to give back and they actually wanted to help, and were interested in, kind of younger people seeking their knowledge. I always thought it was, I thought, oh, I don't want to bother these people or things like that. But, I think you'd be surprised if you just go and ask. You never know if you don't go. So,
and Mike's a great example of sort of living, living his talk, doing what he says he's going to do. Mike came to me. I've told this story on your show before, Jake, but 6 or 7 years ago, and started to talk to me about what he wanted to do in mining. And I thought, well, I like the cut of this fella's jib. He's young and doesn't have much technical experience, and he's turned into fast becoming one of the best mining entrepreneurs Canada's ever seen, the world's ever seen. So, he's sort of living by his principles there. The other principle he lived by sort of early on in the days of Vizsla was that he did actually prop the company up with his own credit card and took on an incredible amount of debt to pay salaries and the like. So, there it is writ large. This guy he's built an entire major New York Stock Exchange listed business by doing all of those things.
Yeah, it really is amazing. Mike, you and I have become good friends, and just in all, sincerity outside of a working relationship is just I'm super proud of you. From the first time we met and you said, hey, here's what we're going to do. And, a million other companies are telling me what they're going to do. And you did it. And New York Stock Exchange listing is pretty impressive, especially when we're not heading, it'd be another thing if you did it at $50 silver. So, incredible accomplishment. But let's talk a little bit about, we're in so much uncertainty in the world right now. And I think that the stress of that can cause confusion or analysis paralysis. And then we're in an era right now where I think people realize, it's important to really get ahead. And I want to ask you, Mike, how is it that you're able to navigate that uncertainty or that fear? You went all in, you truly went out all in on something to the point where you were running salaries on a credit card, and you truly did swing for the fences. And I want to talk a little bit about what were the important tools to help you navigate that fear and uncertainty?
Well, I don't think I've done a fair bit of work on that over the last couple of years here, whereas that I wasn't really managing it probably as well as I am now back then. But one of the things that helps me with that is just the sense of kind of feeling that you're capable of handling what comes at you. A lot of the things there's one quote that I like is that we suffer about 10 times as much in our minds than in reality. So the things that we worry about are often unfounded, and there's not the need to worry and suffer about them, because as the trials and tribulations come, you'll deal with them in real time, and all you can do is prepare for them, but not suffer and worry in advance. And I just kind of have a feeling that we'll be able to weather the storm, or we'll be able to kind of manage any obstacles that come, because we have an excellent team, and we're kind of all aligned with the things that we want as outcomes. So that's how I kind of look at that. And sure, things have been going very well for us, but I'm sure in the future there might be issues and troubles that we need to deal with, and having a kind of a calm approach to that, and faith that things will work out, I think, is important.
So Vizsla Silver, New York Stock Exchange now. What's the new ticker?
It's the same, VZLA. So on both the Venture Exchange and the New York Exchange, it's VZLA.
So congratulations, especially to everyone. I know there's many, many, many people in our community that invested in Vizsla early on and when you guys became the sponsor. So congratulations to everyone listening. Congratulations to you guys. And I want to wrap up with a final question. Mike, when you and I first met, you told me that you read a book, Think and Grow Rich, in your early 20s, and it had a big influence on your life, and in some ways kind of help prime you to your entrepreneurial success. What's one of the big takeaways that from a money mindset type of perspective and a success philosophy that influenced you from that?
Well, I think the big thing was just the as simple as goal setting. And, one of those goals actually was when Craig and I met. I think I probably told you, but I wanted to be a millionaire by the time I was 30. And it was great. It was a few months before my 30th birthday that we sold Cobalt One, which is our first company together. So that I don't, I don't think I was really conscious about that when it was happening, but that was something that I'd written down as a goal. And so for me, it's very simple that, having goals that are measurable and achievable, and kind of revisiting them, has always been a major, takeaway from that.
How about you, Craig? You read that book?
Actually, I haven't read that one. No. I started off with Rich Dad, Poor Dad when I was about 14, and
When you were 14?
I was 14. I love that book. We bought the board game and everything, but
Same.
yeah, and fabulous sort of introduction to the, so much of this is about sort of having a go, getting off your ass and giving something a go and taking some risk. So important. I've sort of, I don't think I was a millionaire by the time I was 30, not long after, but I lost all of that pretty quickly thereafter as well, and had to start again. So, getting getting up, once you've done it a couple of times, it gets easy to do each time as well.
So, Vizsla Silver, Mike and Craig, any last words, any things that I missed that you want to wrap up with, or anything you want to let anyone know?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, well, I'll let you finish off, but I'll just say this: that the world's much more uncertain today than it was even a few weeks ago. You see what's happening in the Ukraine and Russia at the moment. Inflationary pressures. Everything's pointing to a time when you need to have more precious metal in your life, and possibly some under your bed. And so, as Mike says, to get a leveraged position into what we do, you're best investing in the equities. And I think, now whether we're a New York Stock Exchange listed company, it's for your viewership, probably, and great viewers out there, probably easier to invest in the company now than it was a couple of weeks ago. So, and keep an eye out for what we're doing here, because we've got, as I say, 10 rigs turning, and a huge amount of news to come soon. Sorry to cut you off.
No problem. I would just say, first of all, thank you, Jake, for your compliments and your congratulations there. Appreciate that. And thank you to your viewers and the shareholders that have been introduced through Vizsla, through our sponsorship and through your show. So we appreciate that. And just to echo Craig, that this is going to be the best year yet for Vizsla. We have more drilling, more milestones, more upside than ever before, and it's just it's very, very exciting, and we're going to be telling more people about it. So in the same way that silver has a supply and demand balance there, so does the demand on Vizsla. I think bringing that to a larger network, it only increases the demand on the shares, and we'll be doing our best to tell people about how successful we think we're going to be here.
So we want to thank you for listening today. Make sure you smash the like button, subscribe, bell notification, Vizsla Silver website right there down below. We want to thank them for joining today. Let us know in the comments what you think of today's episode, and we will see you soon.